See all the
Recording in progress.
Diane, can we get a quick picture before Santa melts?
Yep.
Real quick.
Do we want to do a picture of everybody?
No, let's just get
Start
this
the meeting.
Yeah,
Start
let's
the
do it.
meeting.
I think I gotta go back more. Everybody smiling?
We are.
You lost the other screen now.
Oh,
Oh, there.
there we are.
There we go.
All right.
Sandy, you can excuse yourself at any time if the elves need you.
Yeah.
Yes, I may get a call.
Ready? All right.
Born ready.
So, welcome to the December 21st Swampscott Select Board meeting, ugly holiday sweater edition. We have a very special guest here with us tonight, Santa Claus.
Hello, boys and girls. I hope you're behaving yourselves. Look forward to seeing everybody in a couple of days.
Thank you for joining us, Santa Claus. We're honored to have you here with us. Santa, if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. So, before we get started, and I apologize for the change of tone, but I want to just acknowledge the recent passing of a member of our community. Paul Levinson died peacefully on December 18th. Paul was, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who did more for this community and for this town during their life. He was a town meeting member for over 50 years, a member of the select board, member of the Conservation Commission, the chair of the select board, or at that time, Board of Selectmen. We all, I think, stand on his shoulders and everything that we do. And he's just an example to all of us, and our incredible gratitude goes out to Cheryl Levinson, his wife, and their family, and our heartfelt sympathies. I know Peter knew Paul and knows Cheryl well, so Peter, I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak, and if others want to as well, you're welcome to.
Thanks, Neil. I think those that knew Paul knew that he led with his integrity and his intellect, and a tremendously serious person that took what he did for the town, his time in the service, his time in state government, his private practice really, really seriously. He was in the era of just our transition to professional town government. So it was a very different time for the select board. Many of you know that Cheryl also worked for the town of Swampscott for many years as well. And I think this story that I think is worth sharing is the love that Paul and Cheryl shared with each other, and Cheryl spending endless days and nights caring for Paul in recent months, and the sacrifices she made and the demonstration of love that she showed for her husband, for another human, and her compassion right to the very last breath that Paul took. And it really speaks so much of who Paul must have been to deserve that love, and Cheryl to be able to give that love and be strong throughout the process. And I think it's a fitting way to remember Paul and to be able to thank Cheryl for being so loving, and to thank the Levinsons for all that they've done for Swampscott.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone, for giving us that moment. Next, I think we're going to quickly move to public comments. Public comments, an opportunity for members of the public to express their opinions on items both not on and on the agenda. It's not intended to be a discussion, debate, or dialogue between or among the Select Board and residents. Additionally, before sharing your comments, we ask that you state your name, address, and, if known, voting precinct. Each speaker will be limited to speaking once for a maximum of 3 minutes. Residents may raise new issues, identify community problems, and comment on past, present, or future agendas. Absent extraordinary circumstances, the board will not respond or react to the issues raised, and they should not be discussed or debated at the time. We request that you respectfully refrain from criticizing or disparaging individual committee members, town staff, or other resident groups or individuals. And we request that you refrain from making comments that contain political statements or include commentary, criticisms, or other statements about any town staff. With that, I don't know if there's any public comment here in the room or on Zoom. If there's also public comment through email, you can send it to me at nduffy@swampscottma.gov. Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move on to our first item on the agenda, which is a very exciting presentation, and I will be handing over the reins to Mary Ellen Fletcher to present some incredible awards.
So I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I'd like to thank the Recreation Department for hosting another amazing turkey trot. This year, we're going to do the awards right here with Santa. So we'll start with the family that came in third place. And I want you to know that the police department will not be coming down here tonight because they're giving us a Christmas break. So the third place family is the Marshall family. It's Erin, Kyle, Ava, and Addie. You want to come on down here with Santa? Santa, can you take a picture?
Oh, I'd be happy to take a picture. I have some.
Are you? You're Addie?
Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations. Bo Bell, well, looks like Bo Bell has been a wonderful.
Oh, we forgot Bo Bell. Sorry about that.
All right.
Oh, you guys want the picture
Lots going on. All right, Santa. Hello.
Great job. For our second place finish team, we have the Andropoulos family with their driver. And we have Irina and Kiki and their mom, Tisea. Come on down, girls. Here you go, Santa.
All right. All right, girl. Congratulations. Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't get too close, though. How far away?
Nice job, girls.
Well, I have to have a complaint.
Our concern is that we might argue.
Okay, and last but not least, we have our returning champions, the Phelan family, Stella and Jack, and their parents, Katie and John. Come on down here for the second year in a row.
Very nice.
There's Santa.
Wow, great job,
Here you go, Santa.
guys. You guys are awesome. Nice job.
Stella, come on in the front for a picture.
Okay, Eddie?
All right.
Want to hold that down so I can see Stella's beautiful face? There we go. Stella, look at me. Look at that up there. There we go.
All right.
I'd like to thank everyone for their participation. We had
Merry Christmas.
We had 16 families, and we're hoping next year we'll have at least 50.
Ooh,
So thank you very much. And thank you to the Recreation Department.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
thank you, Mary.
Congratulations to the winners. Happy holidays.
Can we go? Yes. Jack said, can we go? My husband said, yes.
Santa's gonna take a little break.
All right, Santa.
All right. Merry Christmas, though. You
Thank you, Santa.
keep up the good work.
Thank you, Santa.
Thank you, Santa.
Are you going back to the North Pole now, Santa? Or?
I'll get right back.
We'll
to
see.
you, Bill.
Oh, thank you. All right. Moving on.
Santa took a digger.
So we have a hearing at 6:30, so I just wanted to quickly mention to folks that are watching the meeting that we will not be discussing the Archer Street property and a potential acquisition on that. That's being tabled tonight. And also the update on additional license renewals. I just wanted to mention that the reason that's there is there was a entertainment license that we were planning on approving, but it was for a business that is no longer going to be in business. So I just wanted to say, so Zest Friends announced that they were closing and won't be reopening in 2023. And I just wanted to thank them. It was an incredible place, and so sorry to see them closing down. And wish the owners all the best. Sean.
Oh, I heard Santa
Yeah,
stop
you
by.
missed all the excitement.
I just saw him. He just left on the sleigh.
Did you see him?
I did see him. I waved to him, and I wished him a good night.
Amazing.
Said that he was sorry that he couldn't stay for the entire meeting.
Enter left the Grinch.
Sad but true.
Okay, so before we start this hearing, I think the next item on our agenda is a discussion and vote on the use of ARPA funds for the Firefighters Union contract. As you all recall, we approved an agreement between the town and the Firefighters Union recently, and then at our special town meeting approved the use of free cash as part of that agreement. But there were some proposed use of ARPA funds as a piece of that agreement. So we, as a select board, need to officially authorize that use in this meeting. Are there any questions or comments about that?
You know, I just want to thank, the Swampscott Firefighters Union. We have President Jim Snow here tonight as a representative of the bargaining team. And certainly, we spent many months just going over a complicated contract. This contract does support stability. It certainly recognizes the extraordinary work of the men and women that work for the department. We have gone through quite a few years of complexity with the pandemic, and I certainly hope that this contract will provide some stability, but also recognize the extraordinary work of the men and women that keep Swampscott safe.
So I'll read this motion if someone can make the motion after. It's a motion to authorize the use of $223,000 of ARPA funds for payments to our firefighters, EMTs, who provided critical governmental services between March 17th, 2020 and November 9th, 2022. Such payments are being authorized in consideration of exemplary work during the pandemic, including work as deputy health agents and exposure to hazardous materials, and the resolution of overtime staffing cases and additional complaints.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
I'm going to be a no tonight, consistent with my vote on the contract. I don't believe this is an appropriate use of ARPA funds. I understand and I appreciate all your hard work in negotiating a contract, and I can only imagine how difficult it is. because I'm not in the room, but I will tell you from the outside and from how it played out publicly, I think it's really unfortunate, and I'm sorry to you and Chief Archer, because I think you guys bear the brunt of that. But most importantly, I don't think this is a financially sound contract, and I don't think this should be seen as a model that we can sustain as a town going forward. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Peter. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. What's up?
Do you want to?
Got time for one more thing.
Yeah. What's up?
Do you want to try and do one more thing before our 6:30?
Yeah, so why don't we, let's go to an update, and I'm trying to think of what will be
What
quick.
about climate action?
Yeah, we can do establish and appoint a climate action plan committee. So I sent you all a memo. This is, you know, at our June town meeting had approved that the town develop and pursue a climate action plan. The group that brought that to town meeting was the Climate Action Resilience Coalition, which is a group of volunteers, not an official town committee, but they were the ones who were essentially endorsed to go forth and develop this plan. Since that time, they've been working on the plan. Marzi Galaska, our Director of Community and Economic Development, was able to garner a grant to provide technical assistance for the development of that plan, which is ongoing currently. I think a lot of work has been happening, but I think that in consideration of the fact that this will be a policy document that'll be coming before the board and the town, that it made sense to create an official climate action plan working group committee to do that work with publicly noticed meetings rather than to be doing it. So it's essentially a working group from that coalition, and I had provided the names of the people who would be part of that group, including myself. There is, you know, the planning board and solid waste advisory, both. Well, I know for sure that solid waste advisory is just going to have a liaison to this committee, to this group, and didn't feel necessary to have an official member. And I think in conversations with the chair of the planning board, she felt similarly. If that changes, I think we would bring back more appointments. The idea would be that this committee, just like when we developed a master plan, this is a committee that would be creating this climate action plan and bringing it to the boards. They've already met with multiple committees and done a lot of outreach and surveys, so the work has begun. So if there's a motion to establish a climate action plan committee and appoint those listed in our packet to a term of 1 year, I would entertain that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, you should recuse yourself from this vote because you can't appoint yourself to a committee.
Thank you. I will, happily. Any questions or further discussion?
So would you be a voting member or ex officio? Because including you, there would be 10. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would be a voting member.
Voting member.
Yeah.
I do have a question. When committee, so this committee was put together, I just want to know, like, what was the process? Was there a process as far as opening it up so anyone in the community that wanted to get involved or volunteer, did they have that opportunity?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think that because this work was already happening with this group, it felt like let's just have, and the that coalition that I mentioned is a much larger group of people.
Okay.
But these are sort of the core group of people that have already started working on this action plan. So it felt like having them be the ones who are part of that group and you know, creating an official committee such that it's a public meeting that anyone can come and participate in the planning process was preferable. And given that the goal is to hopefully have the climate action plan potentially at the Springtown meeting, this seemed to make the most sense.
And I just certainly love the fact that there are two young citizens, two Swampscott High students that are going to be serving on this committee, and I think that's a fantastic idea, and it would be great to get involvement of our younger citizens within some of these committees in town. So, thank you.
I agree. Okay, all those, if there's not any other comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm recusing myself from that. All right. So,
How about, let's knock out this, maybe number 7?
So, yeah, sure. So, update and discussion regarding the senior planner position. I had a couple members that communicated to me and to Sean just questions about this, the senior planner position. It's been open for a while, and I think we're always busy and in need of a senior planner. And I thought it would make sense because over the last couple of weeks, received some communications about it and concern that we need some support in certain initiatives that we're undertaking now, not to mention heading into the town meeting season and working on bylaws, that we still didn't have that position. So I just I thought it made sense to bring it to the board just to have an update from Sean and a brief conversation about the challenges in filling that position, but also ways that we can potentially provide support, both to the planning board and to our board and to the town in general, town staff.
Sure. Neil, I really appreciate the concern by the board members. I don't think there has been a period in time where we've needed a senior planner position more. We have busy projects, not just the Hawthorne redevelopment, but the Glover and broader economic development needs of Vinnon Square and neighborhood protection. So this is a really critical position. Unfortunately, just like every other community, we have faced some challenges. We've posted this position. We received 0 applicants. And generally, we have a very competitive salary range for a senior planner position, but we're not finding many individuals looking for that role. We've reached out to a number of candidates to try to recruit them. A number of them have been successful in landing community development director positions that garner a much higher salary. The type of senior planner we need really is on the level of an assistant director or a director. And frankly, we've this past week updated the job description for this position to change the position from a senior planner to an assistant director of planning. We have a director of planning or director of community and economic development, and what we really want is somebody that feels as though they will have the charge to direct and lead the planning effort. I've discussed this with our community and economic development director, Marzi Galaska, and our assistant town administrator and HR director, Pete Kane. And so we have that job description updated. We're going to post that again to MMA at a salary range that is a little bit higher in the interest of trying to garner a little bit more of attention. We also have reached out to a few of the colleges and universities. A number of staff have attended, some very prestigious planning and community development programs in the region, and we're going to start to really identify individuals that might want an internship in graduate programs. We've been successful recently in attracting interns for very critical roles in town hall functions, and there may be opportunities for us to really grow an individual into that type of responsibility. I think the key attributes that we're looking for is somebody that really is focused on details and deadlines and really can help drive project development, understand zoning, and understand the importance of guiding projects consistent with the town's master plan and zoning guidelines. That said, the conversation continues to evolve, and we're all pressed because we all feel the burden of not having the support of those positions. So I'm happy to keep this on a ticker and report back at every meeting and give the board an update on our progress. I do understand that this needs to be a priority, and staff are really working to make sure that we can find somebody. I do share the opinion that there is somebody out there. Even though people have not applied for this position, I do believe that there are individuals that would find it extremely rewarding and extraordinary to work in this position. Right now, we're doing so much important work in developing our waterfront, where we've got an exciting team, we've got wonderful projects that really could give an individual not just wonderful experience, but a great opportunity to influence the development of a very busy town.
I have a question, Sean. Is there, are there avenues, I know that when we didn't have an accountant, we're able to bring in a consultant. Can we bring in a consultant to?
We can. We've actually, I did discuss short-term. We just hired a consultant to help us with our MBTA project. We got a $20,000 grant to hire a consultant to really help us plan and support some of those responsibilities. And I did ask for a scope of work from that consultant to, help us with some short-term, 3 or 4 months, 6 months worth of project coordination for the Community and Economic Development Department. I have heard from the staff that there are some concerns from some of the land use boards that they need a little bit more technical support, and I think we can help buttress that with some contracted staff.
Okay, the reason, because I'm very concerned about this after listening to I listened to what happened at the Marblehead Planning Board, and I listened to our public hearing with the planning board over the Glover, and I am concerned about getting somebody involved to support the planning board themselves so that they can write their decisions and be prepared so that we're not sitting in a tough spot.
Understood.
I think it's worth just talking a little bit more about this position, because my biggest fear is that we get to a very tough upcoming budget season and people mistakenly view a vacancy as a degree of importance for position, right? And that would be a tremendous error here, because frankly, we've been subsidizing staff through the use of a lot of, frankly, select board member time, right? Doing things and spending many more hours than any of us want to be spending on things, and that's great. We're all happy to do it, and others are happy to step up, but it's not sustainable. And Agreed. There's a number of initiatives that, Neil and I before 9:30 this morning had 2 calls on 2 different projects, right? And we want to advance the Hadley RFP. We know we just closed on Hawthorne, which is exciting news, and we're closing on other real estate. There's a lot to happen here, and I want to be clear. What Marzi does and what Marissa, who is our land use coordinator, does, Marissa does a great job organizing the administrative side of things to kind of take it off the desk of others so that we make sure that we do it correctly. And it helps the chairs and it helps Marzi out. But Marzi is really helping so many projects and spearheading so many projects. This position that's vacant here is really a truly, truly substantive planning position. It's one that's going to help steer the direction of the ship, but also it is clear, and I agree with Mary Ellen, I too listened to the Marblehead Planning Board meeting, which followed the Swampscott Planning Board meeting, and they were very different meetings. And I think one of the main reasons is the benefit of having learned staff to be able to prepare things, to be able to meet with applicants, to be able to advance things more efficiently. Marblehead closed their public hearing, right, and issued a decision on the Glover, and we're talking about getting extensions past March. And admittedly, there's more of the project in Swampscott than is Marblehead. But I think that between that planner position and in past, we had a building inspector who would be a little bit more versed, perhaps, in zoning matters. And so when petitions would go to the zoning board or the planning board or other things, those petitions would arrive with a little editorial from a planning perspective saying this is the bylaw allows this, doesn't allow this, or at least give some guardrails and some information to the boards. That's not happening anymore, and that's a real miss, and it's asking too much of our land use boards to make up for that deficit. And we've been lucky; we have some really, on the planning board and zoning board, particularly, we have some really great, talented people. But they may not know. We talked the other night about an application for expanding a garage, right? And they may not know that they actually can't give the relief, right, that's being asked, that legally, but there may not be anything in the bylaw that says you cannot give the relief. What they would need to know is the law, right? And it's not reasonable to expect them to know the law, and they frankly should have been counseled, which is, here's the application. The applicant has a right to file the applicant. It doesn't mean that they have a right to get the relief they're asking for. This is the law, which is, X, Y, and Z, to take that burden off of the land use boards. The land use boards ultimately have to make their decisions, but I think we have multiple examples of where special permits or relief have been given to projects that actually, if you were to study the application and study the application to the bylaw, you would see that there's actually not relief available. It's effectively a rezoning outside of town meeting, and so we shouldn't be doing that. And it's just not fair for the land use boards to have to bear that burden. And the Glover's just a great example, where if you have learned staff, and Marblehead's had the benefit of a very long-term, established professional, you see the benefits of that. They bring applicants and applications in a much better form to the board by the time it gets there, so that low-hung fruit's certainly addressed, but oftentimes bigger issues are also addressed. And it really streamlines things. We aren't going to be able to keep doing the things that we're doing, like hard stop in our town, the things that people are most excited about. I mean, yes, people are excited when we control budgets, but the things that really affect people's quality of lives, zoning, planning, development, open space, harbor, we can't keep doing these things without that position. So I'm really grateful that you're reformatting how the position looks and this, but this is going to take very, very active recruitment. And I'm glad you suggested some temporary help as well, but this is going to take active recruitment. And frankly, we got active recruitment is how we got our current, economic and community development head. Active recruitment is how you got your assistant town administrator. Active recruitment has shown fruits for us, and so and we can all help as well. But I think it's great you reformatting
I appreciate the focus on the budget too. Frankly, these are the kind of positions that really help us write grants, help us bring more money in. I would say, it would be penny wise and pound foolish to try to think that we could save anything by reducing the money that we spend on community and economic development. We look at Vinton Square, and anybody that thinks that campus, that was defined back in the 50s still works for, 2023 is reading an old textbook. There's lots for us to do, and the economic development, the needs for, broader conversations around planning and master planning have never been more important. So I hear you. I will get back to the board every week or every meeting until we find the right individual to help us continue to, move Swampscott forward and support some of these extraordinary initiatives. I will say I was a little troubled as well watching the planning board the Glover was a project that was defined by a vote of town meeting, and I am still perplexed at some of the complexity around that project.
Yeah, well, I hear you. It's a big project, it's a complex project, and I think we are so lucky to have 5 individuals that are so earnest and working hard and putting forward ideas. I think staff would only help them be able to navigate this quicker. We ask a lot of our land use boards, candidly. Every town does, but they need the support staff, and so I'm glad that you're focused on it. Thank you for being focused.
Thanks, Sean. And I agree with everything Mary Ellen and Peter had to say, and I think that, I know that there's been effort to try to fill this position, so I just want to acknowledge that. Any other comments or questions about this?
No, I just want to say thank you to Angela Polito and the planning board and to the zoning board. I mean, the amount, if you listen to these meetings, this is really hard work, and I really appreciate it.
Great. Okay. Moving on to our show cause hearing. Diane, I think that Tom McEnany and then Brian Riley should be promoted from KP, just to have them on the line. So I'm gonna now opening the show cause hearing. This show cause hearing is to consider whether to cancel the all alcohol. Yeah, come on down here if you to cancel the all alcohol Section 15 package store license issued to C&L Package Store Incorporated for the premises previously located at 26 New Ocean Street in Swampscott, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 77. I'd like to note the show cause hearing is being held in public, but it's not a public hearing that we're accustomed to, so public comment will not be taken during this hearing. Is the license holders here with representation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney Sam Vitale. My office is in Lynn at 60 Andrew Street. I'm here on behalf of C&L Package Store and Fran Peralta. Fran was a businessman here in the town for over 40 years. What brings us here this evening is the extraordinary circumstances that led to his long career as a businessman in Swampscott coming to a sort of abrupt end. I also welcome the opportunity to report to the board and forward some information with respect to what happened since the town made its decisions with respect to that location. As the members of the board know, Fran's operation on the Lynn and Swampscott line was on town-owned land. He had leased for many years, I believe until perhaps 2017 or so when the lease wasn't renewed, but he stayed at the property until the town made a decision with respect to that site. And I'm certain from the town's perspective, it was a wise business decision. But government doesn't only operate as a business. I'm certain there are people who think it should. But there are other considerations, like, for example, the VFW that was next door. There may be people that could pay more rent than the VFW, but there are other considerations, and one should be with a small businessman who served the public need, served the public convenience, and has a property right now in this license. That's why the ABCC and the state statutes afford people who are in this circumstance a right of appeal, because you're essentially depriving somebody of a property interest. They're entitled to fairness and due process, and this hearing is part of that. I welcome that, and I thank you for that. I'd like to just give you an update. These are the locations that, and I'll give you my card. These are the locations over the past several months that C&L Package Store has investigated with the hopes of finding a new home. The other factors that are real and make an impact here is the town has got a limited geographic area. The town has a zoning ordinance and bylaw. And when you're in the package store business or in the alcohol business, you need two things. You need a license and you need a licensed premises. The licensed premises is one that is determined by the licensing board to be a suitable place to serve the public need. And for many years, this location was determined to be that, and annually the license was renewed and renewed and renewed. And then we came to a circumstance where there was no longer a lease. Let me clarify something, that there is no statute, there is no regulation that says that if you cease business, you only have 6 months. You might have 3 months. That's your determination. You might have a year. That's your determination. It's the totality of the circumstances that led to that. So if there was a conflagration and a fire that destroyed it, or a flood, and the place couldn't be rebuilt in a year, I'm certain the Select Board would say, well, we understand that. It took longer to rebuild. It took more than 6 months. Or if there were some other circumstances. So that's left to you with respect to make a determination. But the real reason I think you need to look to that is that it's to foster competition. It's to serve the consumers. What they don't want the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission is to have somebody hold or withhold a license that could serve the public because they want a higher price for it, or they're trying to make a different deal with someone else. They want the licenses out there. They want competition. They want the benefit for consumers and prices. They want convenience. And so the irony is, you hold a pocket license. You have a pocket license right now, because the decennial census came along and said, based on the way licensing is done with respect to the package stores, it's based on the population, and the population is based on the decennial census. So you now have an additional license. But there's a fundamental difference, and let me explain it to you. You're not obliged, nor can the ABCC tell you on license number 4 that you must issue it or to whom you must issue it. That's your decision. The ABCC and the statutes recognize on a new license, it's the determination by the local board as to whether to issue it and whether there's a public need. But when you have a license that has been issued, there's a fundamental difference, because the ABCC and the regulatory scheme recognizes that somebody now has a property interest. And here in America, you can't be deprived of your property interest without due process. And that due process is fundamental fairness. So let's look at why C&L Package Store closed, because unlike other people who may lose a lease, other individuals who can't conduct their business because of some natural disaster, here what happened is really, it was your decision to take that site and for you, whatever purposes you saw, to do something else with it. That's what deprived C&L of the location that it had for 40 years. And that was your prerogative. But at the same time, it seems ironic, at least to me, that the individual who was the proprietor at that location for 40 years is now being told, you must act within a certain time frame, when you know better than most there are constrictions within the size of this town and the zoning bylaws and the effect on neighbors and the effect on traffic to find a suitable location. So I think I gave you a list of 18 places that we looked. Now, the good news is that one of those has come back to the forefront, and we're engaged in negotiations with, there's a strip mall along Humphrey Street across from Phillips Park. I personally have spoken to the owner of that location, who these people met with, and at that time, he had a different plan, the owner of the property. He told me that that didn't work out. He would clearly consider them again, and they've begun the negotiations for that site. But it's hard to put a timetable on when that can come to fruition. And I also think that part of it is that in recognition of what Fran has done for 40 years and the business that served the community over that period, you did give him an opportunity. There's no question about that. But I also think that when you renewed his license, that gave him a certain ability to go out and look for another location. If you deprive him of that now, he does have a right of appeal to the ABCC, but it seems to me that it's going to be discouraging to other businesses, especially small businesses, We know there's a large package store in Vinton Square. There's a smaller one on Borough Street, I believe. But in terms of serving the public and serving competition, it seems to me you should be working to support local businessmen, especially people who've been here for a long period of time. Now, if you had a trouble spot, I don't think anybody would question your ability to say, this has been a trouble spot, we don't need more trouble spots. But that's not the case here. The case here is that someone made a decision, and to me, I'm experienced, I represented marijuana establishments. I know there's a linkage between the number of package store licenses and the minimum number of marijuana. And I got to believe that when you calculated to have 2 marijuanas, you counted in the package store numbers that you had C&L. So it led to his own demise because it was part of the formula that allowed you to have 2. So in fact, that location is a good location, and I'm certain that the marijuana people can do very, very well there. But the real question is, with the growing population, which the decennial census reflects, should there only be 2 package stores in the town of Swampscott? I'd love to be only one of 2 lawyers in the city of Lynn. It doesn't work that way, okay? People have determined that competition is good, that when people have choices, it's good, and it benefits the public. So the real question, I think, for you this evening is, if you were to cancel this license, is that really in the public interest? It certainly is not in Fran's interest because it's going to deprive him of a property right that he heretofore had and shepherded and served well the community for this period of time. And so you can grant him additional time. You can grant C&L additional time. I can't say to you that it'll be tomorrow or 2 months from tomorrow, but I think he deserves an opportunity, a continued opportunity, to try to find a home here in Swampscott where he's had his business for the last 40 years. And that this, as I said at the outset, is not the ordinary circumstance where someone has had a disaster, has a financial problem, has had problems in their operation, and that's where the term pocket license came from. But the real reason, if you look for that policy, why there is some impetus to have people have an active role, it's that they not profit by depriving others of the opportunity. Here, others have an opportunity because you got a 4th license, and that opportunity is subject to your control, your decisions. But he should have the same opportunity as someone else who can come in for license number 4 if they choose to. But anybody coming here is going to be confronted with the same circumstances. We got a geographic area that's this wide. We've got business zones that are determined by the zone ordinance and the zone map. And then there are business considerations, traffic, parking, and the viability of your businesses is public convenience. And so I think that list that we gave you as an update for the places that he's looked at reflect the diligent search that they have made. If you look at the list, you'll see that it is in places where they think there would be sufficient parking, there is proper zoning, and there's some opportunity for success because it's convenient for the public. And so I love your Christmas garb. I don't see anybody dressed as the Grinch. And I guess in parting, I just say I hope you don't hand Fran a lump of coal. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Vitale, and thank you, Mr. Peralta, for being here. I'm assuming you don't have any witnesses that you're
Other than
Mr. Peralta.
Who said to me, he's really nervous about this. He doesn't like public speaking. And I said, why I asked him to be here, I'll tell you candidly. I said, people like me are viewed as a hired hand, okay? I think you got to put human faces on it, okay? This is somebody, when he told me how long he had been there, and I've known Fran a long time, I go, geez, you're really older than I thought, Fran. You've been there for 40 years.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. But somebody who invested their time in one location, And I don't think that there's been a problem with the location as far as his operation. So I think that does deserve some consideration.
Fair enough, thank you. So before we get started, I just want to, I'm anticipating there may be questions for Angelica Noble, our admin at the police department. So for these show cause hearings, I need to swear in any witnesses. So Angelica, if you could stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thanks. And before I hand it over to board questions or comments, I just wanted to provide a brief statement for a little bit of context. CNL Liquors vacated 26 New Ocean Street on or about September 1st of 2021 and has failed to exercise the license since it vacated its former premises. The board renewed that license on December 1st of 2021, as Attorney Vitale explained, with the condition that it must be exercised within 6 months of our notice. And that notice was provided on December 10th. In that notice, the board informed the license holder that absent the license being exercised, we would hold a show cause hearing to consider the cancellations of this license. We did provide a 6-month extension, if you will. We didn't have that show cause hearing at the end of that 6 months, so there has been essentially a full year since that time for Mr. Peralta to seek an alternative location for his package store. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Peralta's representative or for Angelica Noble?
I have a question. How much time do you need?
That was my question.
You need
Sorry, that was
a microphone.
That was Katie's question,
And if-
too.
And I guess if Mr. Peralta is answering, he has to be sworn in, too. So, you know,
I think because he's the
Easy.
license holder. So.
he doesn't have to be sworn in? Okay, no, that's fine, great. Only you need to be sworn in. You're very untrustworthy.
Can you hear me? Oop. I can even hear.
Yeah.
Good.
We would like to see the license renewed for the year so that we, not so much pressure, but if we can find a location. As you can see by the list, we've looked into many locations over the past year, and nothing has been suitable or come through for us.
Okay.
So it's your opinion that you'd be able to find a location by this time next year?
I would think so. As Sam had said, the proximity of the town, the size of it, it's tough. There's not a lot of locations that are feasible with parking and size for product.
Angelica, how many?
It's been tough. We've looked at it, as you can see, we've looked at a lot.
Angelica, how many licenses do we have in the town where there is not an address certain for any of our package stores?
0.
0.
Well, 1.
One.
Or 1. This one.
One currently,
Yes.
yeah.
And historically, I mean, do you have any historic data? Did we ever do that?
I don't.
We ever have a floating license?
I'm not
without
sure.
a-
I don't
without
have
a
that
physical address?
information.
I mean, that's my concern. I want to support local businesses.
Thank you.
But we just don't know where you are going to be located. That's the challenge that I have.
Yeah, it's just, something comes available, something that, like, we're looking into one now on Humphrey Street.
Angelica, can you, how many licenses are available currently?
There's 1 license currently available, and then if you were to cancel the license, the CNL license, there would be 2.
Okay, and what is the fee to renew the license that Mr. Peralta's already committed to pay?
$2,100.
It's $2,100. And so what is the cost to apply for a new license should we cancel the license now?
That would be $200 paid to the ABCC, and then the $2,100 to the town of Swampscott for the annual fee.
So it would be an extra $200.
Correct.
Okay.
And the risk of not having license available.
How long, do you know how long that other license has been available, that other package license,
That was given to us at,
the special?
Just no.
yeah,
No, it's the census change.
it's, yeah,
Oh,
through the
census
census,
change,
yeah.
okay.
That was just given to us because of the 2020 census. When I say just, sometime in 2021,
Exactly, yeah.
when it hit our books, once they certified the census.
And if we've had a business publicly state that they were going to be leaving, closing their doors, does that make a change?
No, that's a different type of license than we're talking about here. This is a package store
Package
license.
license is separate from an on-premise consumption license.
So this is a so-called Section 15 license, and the restaurant licenses for on-premises are Section 12 licenses. So I don't have any questions. Are we?
I do have one more question. Just, I understand the circumstances to how we got here, but is there an instance where the applicant could apply for a license without a physical address?
I've never experienced that. I don't
Okay.
think that you can.
Yeah.
It's never happened when I've been.
So if we rescinded the license, he could not apply for it back again without having a lease or a deed to a property for which he would be conducting business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because really the premise of the license, right, to be clear, is one of the many things that you're doing when you look at license is the appropriateness of the location. So the location is very relevant to the license for that. So it's not the only consideration, but it's.
So then say our applicant found a new location, is there a chance the ABCC could still reject him
could.
operating at that premises?
They could. We have not had that happen. We've had multiple transfers and new license. I haven't experienced that, but it certainly could happen.
So typically the ABCC is analyzing the applicant
And then we,
more so than the location.
Yeah.
They act after the local licensing authority acts. And so if the meets zoning and the local authority has granted the permit, the ABCC typically on location that's not the reason they don't grant the license. It's usually an
Right.
underwriting issue having to do with the applicant.
So how would it work out if he were to turn around and go into one of these locations and it's a location that we think this isn't a good location? How does that play out?
Isn't or is?
Is not.
Is not. So they would have to come back to us for a change of location on the license anyways, and then that still ultimately would
Okay.
need to be sanctioned by the ABCC, but they would need to come back to us.
Okay, so he just
that.
can't move into
that-
a, okay.
correct.
All right.
Correct. I'd move to close the public hearing.
I'm going to ask Brian Riley or Tom McEnany, do we close this before we make any motions, or do we do that as part of the show cause hearing?
Mr. Chairman, it's Tom McEnany. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, so you would just close the evidentiary portion of the hearing at this point, and then the board can deliberate and make a motion and a decision on how it would like to proceed.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, I mean, we have before us, I think, our options are pretty clear. We could extend the license for a certain period of time, or we can make a motion to cancel the license pursuant to General Law, Chapter 138, Section 77.
So I'm going to make a motion to cancel the license, but Mr. Peralta, I hope that you continue looking for a location. I come from the position of that licenses, I think you've been given a year. We understand how difficult it is, but the next person that asks the same thing, whether or not they had the license for a day or a year or 40 years, I believe they're entitled to the exact same treatment. And so therefore, if we allow you to hold the license, I would feel as though we would need to let the next person, even if they were just here for 3 days with a license as opposed to 40 years. And I feel it's arbitrary then for us to be deciding multiple people, 1, 2, 3, can hold licenses for a prolonged period. I'm glad that we gave you the time. It was a very fair request that you asked for, and I'm glad that we didn't do anything middle of last year. I hope that you continue looking. The good news is the license is here, so you'll be able to come get it, but I'm more concerned about the fact that if tomorrow another package store decided that they were closing or something, that they would seek that same remedy to hold that license, and then we would be having 2. And so for that reason, I'm going to move to cancel it, but I do hope that you continue the conversation, and the good news seems that you can come back, and I appreciate, Mr. Vitale, your comment about the license being a property interest. I accept whatever Massachusetts law is on this point, and you do have rights to appeal, and you should decide accordingly. I do fundamentally, just personally, although it doesn't cloud my judgment here, do have a problem with the fact that a license that you can get from the town for a small administrative fee all of a sudden becomes a forever property interest of someone that's not the town. And it's always, we're not like Cambridge or Boston where the license holder is selling them for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. That doesn't happen here, but I do believe fundamentally it's about the public good and the public service, and I hope that you do find a place. I really do. And I think there's some locations that I could get comfortable with on this list, personally, so I really encourage it, but I can't be comfortable with, for the first time in my 8 years, and I'm not familiar with other towns doing it, allowing this prolonged license without a location.
So Peter, just given the language from Town Council, the motion would be to cancel the all alcohol Section 15 package store license issued to C&L Package Store, previously located at 26 New Ocean Street, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 77.
That would be my motion.
Is there a second?
So I have been thinking, yes, I am seconding the motion. I have been thinking about this since our last meeting, and I agree with what Peter stated with regards to the fact that we are setting a precedent here that I don't think that we can sustain for all business owners. And I think that's an issue. I definitely agree. I would love to see you back before us applying for a new license in some of these locations that are listed here. This is not an anti-small business sentiment at all. We appreciate your 40 years of service to the town. However, I don't know that we could or would afford another small business this same outcome if they came before us now. And if that's the case, then I don't know that we should do it again. So I second the motion.
Further comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I completely respect what you and Peter are saying as far as the worry about setting precedent. And the reason why I don't think that it is setting precedent is because we have a business that was renting from the town, and we canceled their lease.
We didn't cancel the lease. I mean, just to be
Okay.
clear, that their lease ended.
Their lease
The
ended.
town decided not to renew it.
We didn't renew
it. But it's not like the town did an early termination or anything. It
Okay.
ran its term, just so
Right.
you know that.
Thank you. But the fact still remains, you had a business going for 40 years in a community with, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, with no complaints, a good business, good neighbor, everything is going fine, and then it doesn't get renewed. So the reason why I don't think it's setting precedents, if you turn around and say, take another year, or even take 6 months, but I am not comfortable with just shutting down a small, not supporting a small business. I mean, I come from a small business background. I know how hard it is, and I just think that this was an existing business in town. We played a part in them not renewing a license. I don't think it's a precedent, because how many more liquor stores or packing stores, they call packing stores?
Package store.
Package stores would get canceled that had an affiliation with the town beforehand. That's why I think we have some room there. That's how I'm looking at it. The reason I don't think it's precedent is because there's history here and there was a reason for it. And I think another 6 months or a year I don't see how it's gonna hurt the town to give a little bit of relief here.
Thank you.
So, this is how I feel about it. I think that we did provide an opportunity last year when we renewed the license. I appreciate all the work that that has gone into trying to find an alternate location, but I don't think we are neglecting that opportunity to still find another location. There will now be 2 licenses available, so it doesn't shut the door on that opportunity. And I agree with what Katie and Peter said previously.
Yep, I'm in the same camp. We did offer the opportunity. We did renew December 1st of 21 for 6 months. We're here, the week before Christmas with this, with the show cause hearing. Business hasn't been operational in 15 months. I'm a huge proponent of small business, and I wish Mr. Peralta the best of luck in finding another location, and hopefully he'll be back in front of us, shortly. But I can't, without a physical location, I can't vote to extend or renew any longer.
If I can say if I can just say one more thing, just Mary Ellen, thanks for what you said. Let me say this. Mr. Peralta can speak for himself, but I will let you know from what I know during my tenure. I sit here in very, very comfortable position saying that the town of Swampscott has been very forgiving and supporting of this small business for a prolonged period of time, and did a number of things that I think were extraordinary, and that perhaps someone in the private sector as a landlord would not have shown such support for a small business. So I sit here even despite this. This is not about pulling the rug out from a small business. This is the rule that we've all functionally have operated under. And so I appreciate, and no disagreement, we were on different sides of this here, but I do sit here very comfortably, and I think, frankly, Swampscott should be proud of the fact that whether they know it or not, Swampscott made some sacrifices and was very supportive of this business for a prolonged period of time. So I don't want this to be construed as anti-business or anything. I hope Mr. Peralta can come back, and I'm sorry he hasn't been able to find a location, but I hope this then encourages others also to join, to exactly what Mr. Vitale said, which is the spirit of competition, which is maybe someone else will have greater success in finding it, and we can put this license to use, which is the whole point of the license. Yep. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is it within our power to allow the current license holder to, he's going to owe another $200 if he applies for a license. Could we allow, if he applied for a new license in the next year, to reduce our fee by $200 for cover the cost he'd be paying to the ABCC?
That's also setting a precedent.
Okay, fair. That's fair. Just.
I think we could have that conversation should that come before us. I think that's within our.
Just trying to find a relief that is not him holding a license.
I thought that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's within our authority if we were to do that.
Great.
Okay, so the motion to cancel, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Opposed.
Yep. Mr. Peralta, thank you. I'm sure, I know you've been working with town staff and Angelica, and I'm sure they would be happy to continue to help you find a location and find a place.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelica. Okay. Aggregate Industries Permit. John Piccarello and Tonia Brandowitz are joining us. You guys want to come down or grab a mic? So, I wanted to put this on the agenda because this, the aggregate permit, John sent a memo to Sean and me on December 14th that we provided for you all, and just explaining and reminding us that the aggregate permit will expire at the end of January. And so it was a good reminder and a good nudge, and considering that we are now at our last meeting of 2022 and our first meeting will be January 11th. That's not a lot of time. And I just wanted to have that conversation, as it seems likely that ERAC's recommendation will be to extend the permit again to June 30th, and just make sure the board has a chance to ask any questions. Now, we are currently in litigation with Aggregate, so it makes some of this conversation challenging, but I think that the point is that's also one of the challenges of changing the permit at this point. And so I think we can discuss at a high level where we are and what options may be available to us besides extending that permit at the end of June. John, I don't know if you want to correct me on anything I said or add anything to that.
Well, you're perfectly right. We discussed just ending and writing a new permit at the end of January, and we came to the conclusion that it would be better benefit for us and for Aggregate if we waited until the end of June, so we had time to meet and discuss any improvements, any changes, any additions to the permit that the committee wants to make. There's just not enough time to do it between now and June 28th when the present one expires. We just soon let it run on another 6 months till the end of June. And in that time, have some discussions, whether it be executive session or with Aggregate, to try to work things out. I mean, this could take another year in litigation before any court makes a decision. We really, that's reality. So our suggestion is as follows, as we wrote. Let's extend it to June 30th, and then we'll have meetings between now and then to see if we can't iron out some of the differences.
Thanks, John. And yeah, to be clear, I think it is, but that's not any action that we would be taking tonight, but I just wanted to put it on everyone's radar.
Now, you don't have to make that decision tonight. I just wanted to bring
Of
it
course.
to your
Yeah, yeah.
attention so that you have a chance to make that decision.
I think it's important just to know, we are in litigation, and we do have, I think, an open line of communication with Aggregate, and it's my hope that we can continue to work with Aggregate as we have done over the last many years and really come to resolution to some of the concerns. And again, I appreciate the work of the ERAC committee and, some of the hard conversations that we've been having, and certainly, I think we can look forward to a few more of those critical conversations with Aggregate, but also, following up with the board and discussing the permit at a later date.
Yeah, it hasn't been an easy discussion with Aggregate and the lawyers involved. It's very limited to what they can discuss and/or agree to.
Because we're in litigation, I also would I would not get into too many of the specifics of those issues, and I would just simply say, I think we have made some extraordinary progress with the standard of care that we have in that permit, and I really appreciate the good faith efforts on both sides to really try to work together and protect the public health and public interests of the citizens of Swampscott.
So Sean, Chairman, if I can. So Sean, I think I hear a polite call for, we can help with that dialogue. It's in executive session, and it's with their lawyers and with them, but I think the recommendation that's being put forth makes inherent sense, and I'm really grateful, Tonya and John, you two in particular, bear the brunt of most of this. So I think that recommendation, if it comes back before us on our agenda, is a good recommendation. But, and I think this is an important but, I think now we need to convene, perhaps with John and a subset of ERAC in executive session to talk about the open items and then meet and empower council, perhaps, to find if there's resolution there. But I think I hear in what John's saying, we need to step in to help advance discussions on those points, and not wait until June. We've got to do that starting now to make a June renewal realistic. Is that fair to say?
Perfect.
Well, we have to do it now anyway, since we have, since the existing permit expires.
No,
on January
I was assuming we'd extend it for 6 months, just because that's not done, and it's not realistic. It's going to get done in the next 30 days. These are not easy topics.
Yep.
So.
Right, just so I understand, so you're inclined to say, let's go with the 6 months, which I would totally agree with you. But also, are we saying to get ERAC in the room with everybody, not everybody,
Well,
get some people together so that possibly we can avoid some of this?
So I think yes, but more importantly, the issues that are the ones being litigated, ERAC by themselves can't settle. They need us to do that. And so we would need to meet an executive session, just us, with ERAC, without ERAC, with council, to authorize council to negotiate, not negotiate. Perhaps we even have a meeting with aggregate council to try a settlement meeting or something. I'm not saying any of this is possible. Settlement may be beyond the reach, who knows, but they can't have, John, Tonya, and others on ERAC can't do anything on these issues without us intervening, and we will only do that in executive session because we're in litigation.
Let me make it perfectly clear that the sticking points in the permit that they're objecting to are totally taboo at any of our meetings. The lawyers say, we are not discussing that. So we're not getting anywhere.
Right.
Yep.
Right. As they should, since we're in litigation. So
Right.
I don't blame them, but to your point, you're at a brick wall unless we or other folks step in and take it out of a public session, basically.
Maybe you have some better ideas than what we want.
Or not, but at least we can
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
Yeah,
at least we're going
Yeah,
to plead ignorance in private session, not publicly.
It could get, well, I'll save it for executive session. That said,
Well, I think,
So you understood what I said.
yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean,
is it-
go ahead.
Is there a reason we cannot extend the permit tonight?
No, we can't.
We didn't.
It's not on my agenda.
We have
We can't do it
to-
tonight
didn't
because
notice
we
it
didn't
that
notice
way.
it.
we're going to
Yeah.
have to
It
invite
needs to
them
be a
in
hearing.
for a public
Yes.
hearing and
Yeah.
give them a chance to participate in the discussion.
And I'm sure the other members of the committee would want to be present.
Yep.
Yeah, I thank John for bringing it to our attention now, and I just wanted to make sure, since we have 3 weeks until our
No, I
next
appreciate
meeting, that
that.
we're
That's
all
great.
sort of thinking about it and know that it's coming.
I just want to ask you one quick question on your letter that you sent us here. You say here that this year there was only 46 blasts, which is under the 50 limit that's in there.
Yes,
Is there a
correct.
reason why it was only 46, do you know?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a reason why it was only 46?
I'm not aggregate, so I can't answer that, but it's pretty much normal. I mean, they have not done any blasts since the first week in December because they've got all kinds of equipment changes going on.
Right.
Granted, the weather has been perfect, but they have other plans that they're trying to get accomplished. And they don't normally start until March of any year. So
Really? Okay.
depending on the weather, climate change, that may change in the future.
I think, though, correct me if I'm wrong, that limit was set at a number that they never exceeded anyways. So
Right.
we set it at once per week with a cap at 50 or 52. 50?
50.
52. Twice per week, but a cap at 50.
Yep.
But we set it in a way that they hadn't exceeded that previously. So at the time, it wasn't seen as
Big deal?
a big deal. It was, but if blasting was going to become more voluminous, it would become a big deal. If all of a sudden they had a spike in it, and so.
A few years ago, they blasted more than they had historically blasted in years, and that's when we actually identified that the number of blasts needed to be regulated, because there was no sense of how many we were going to have to deal with per week or per month or per year. And so that was part of the evolution of this regulatory permit.
So we should meet in executive. I mean, great questions.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about. It's really complicated and God, so, but we should heed your request. I personally think sometime in January meet.
Agree.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming down in person. Appreciate it.
Tony?
All right. In keeping with the theme of sort of putting it on people's radar, the last item is discussion of setting select board and town administrator goals for 2023. I don't expect or want necessarily an in-depth discussion of those goals tonight, but I just wanted to mention and again put forth that I think at our January meeting, probably our January 11th meeting, we'll have a conversation about board goals and setting the town administrator's goals, which we didn't do during his review. And some of those are tied to one another, so I think it's important that there's a sense of our goals as the town administrator is working on his goals. Just to give you a sense of it, last year we sort of approved goals for the board, but the conversations we had were more about goals that we saw as like board goals, but then also goals that we had as individual board members. So the goals we set last year were working on pedestrian safety, retention and filling some of the open town positions, and then a land use summit, which we didn't do. So that gives you, and then, so like for individuals, working on a climate action plan was one of my goals, so that's, and, Polly, the previous chair, Polly, had a goal of creating the handbooks that we had adopted. So that's just an example of the kind of conversation that we had. It's both to provide the town administrator and staff a sense of where our priorities are, but then also just to talk about sort of like what we're hoping and planning on working on. And it's not, it's good to set goals, but it's also, it doesn't mean you're not working on anything else. Or any questions about that process or the timeline there?
Well, I have a question about the process and the timeline. The town administrator is judged on goals, and the timeline on the judging on the goals affects his bonus. So I think that there should be a conversation about how to really make a timeline that's fair, and effective for everybody. Otherwise, it's like, okay, here's your goals, and now you have the clock's ticking, and you have 5 minutes to get all these goals done. So I think that has to be addressed. It's just, do we do goals on a calendar year, or are we doing goals on our fiscal year? And that's just a thought.
Yeah, I think we have to agree on that timeline, and I think, there's a sense of, if there's an absolute, goal of getting handbooks updated or, measuring, progress towards a goal. Like there's a way to kind of look at certain performance in achieving certain outcomes.
So I think that you bring up a good point, and I think that it's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
I think because I think we can set the goals and have maybe a conversation about the timeline in January, but that may be a continued conversation.
That might be a goal.
To figure out, a goal. It's a good goal. And I think that like there are other questions about the review process too, and when it occurs, and I think we can have that conversation because, if it occurs when it's intended to, that's actually, as we did it after some months after when we were supposed to, but that could be potentially after a select board election. So you don't know, so people are reviewing a town administrator potentially who didn't, work with them.
Hypothetically.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think there's a lot there. But I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think we should figure that out and think about that.
The only other thing that I would add is I really think the select board collective goals are really important, individual goals are really important, but I would appreciate, whatever the timing is that we decide on all these things, having the town administrator lead with, begin the dialogue for us, such that he is or she is identifying what the priorities are, and those priorities are oftentimes reflected in the town administrator's budget, town administrator's recommended capital, et cetera, et cetera. And so what that does is it informs us a bit of where the town administrator thinks we need to go as a town, and that's the professional side of things, right? The professional advice, the professional expertise. That doesn't compel our goals necessarily, but it certainly informs our goals to know that, is it consistent? Is it not consistent? Do we need to have a discussion about that? Alternatively, even if consistent, do we have enough resources to do it, right? Or are we spread too thin? Or is town staff spread too thin? Or does the budget just not support certain things? And I think hearing kind of the state of the city, if you will, from the town administrator as a beginning of the process is a really important thing, because I want to make sure. And Sean, you are so good at saying, I'm here to support the select board, and you say it, and I keep correcting you, and I said, I believe we're here to support you, because you're the one that's charged full-time, in charge of a lot of people, and in charge of a big budget to do things, and to put your recommendations forward, and we'll have discussions and debates if we don't agree on direction and things like that, but what I don't want to do is have our goals collectively and individually overshadow or force you away from where you think, unilaterally anyways, where you think the town needs to go, and whether or not we can actually do certain things. Because we've, and this board deserves a lot of credit, the past board deserves a lot of credit, we've started a lot of initiatives, right? and we got a lot of work to do in the next 12 months, just of things that we started. Open space, hard stop there, right? We have Hadley, there's a number of things that we have a lot of work to do, and so I just want to make sure that we hear from the town administrator and hear his vision and hear what he thinks the budget's going to support, not support, so that realistically we're just having a very candid conversation about those kind of expectations, but started with the town administrator.
So I can appreciate that. However, I do vary from there as far as, I do agree with Sean, he is here to support the select board, and as much as I appreciate everything, I think we are the elected officials, and we should be setting what the future should look like for the town. And of course, based on what Sean is saying and what Sean has accomplished, but I view it just a little differently than you, Peter.
Yeah, no, I think that if people were able to summarize your and my difference, that philosophy right there is it. I frankly, I'm so grateful for our professional town government, and I believe we're been spending 20 years on doing 60 years worth of damage, and that's because of professional town government, not because the people elected me. So all I'm suggesting is to make sure that we hear from the town administrator before we, as the elected people, decide to just replace our...
I agree with that.
That's a good note to end on.
Yeah, all right. That's
Look,
good.
I just want to make one small point. Everything, yeah,
We just agreed, Sean, we just agreed on that.
everything that we do,
Santa.
everything that we do is rested in teamwork. There's nothing a town administrator could do without the support of a majority of the members of this board or vice versa. It really is the essence of how communities succeed or fail. I can't tell you how many communities just can't get out of their own way because of the petty politics of their select citizens. And for me, that becomes theater, and the important work of all the things in the master plan, just they disappear for decades. And you're all, I think, aware enough about the successes that we've had, and nothing would be possible without everybody pulling the oar in the same direction. That said, I have a lot of ideas, and I'm happy to kind of roll them up and give you a sense of where I think this budget in FY24 needs to go, and where some of the critical needs are either going to be part of our very busy agenda in FY24 or will confound us as we kind of look to the future. We've got to make some changes, and I don't want to be dour, but I do think there's some big questions on the horizon about how we continue to evolve Swampscott.
Thanks, Sean. Consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have a vote to approve a one-day liquor license for the Historical Commission for an event on January 25th. And then we also have the approval of the minutes of our meeting on December 5th and December 7th. Is there a motion? We can remove things from the consent agenda if needed or wanted.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, town administrators report.
Okay, all right. So as a follow-up to the agenda item of the town administrator's goals and the select board goals, I did reach out to department heads last week and asked them to send me their top 3 or 4 goals to ensure that we can align all of the select board goals and town administrator goals. We are continuing our efforts to really put together the FY24 budget. Amy Sorrow and Patrick Luddy are working with department heads, and over the next few weeks, I'll be meeting with department heads to go over their initial proposed FY24 budgets. I have asked them to submit a level funded budget and a budget that represents a 10% reduction. This is an exercise in really thinking about, how would we, support core services with a significant constraint on appropriations. I don't anticipate that we will present a budget that will be a reduction of 10% next year, but we need to know, where are those core functions and how do we sustain them? Certainly, we as Peter had mentioned, we should have an executive session to really talk about the Aggregate Industries Permit. We are working closely with the ERAC, and I would be happy to coordinate a meeting with the attorney that is representing us in that litigation. Our town clerk, Jared Liberty, is working on getting our annual census mailed and coordinating a comprehensive update for 10 years of missing annual town reports. I want to thank Jared, but also the department heads that are working to compile a lot of those reports. We are updating our public records request process. We are going to be charging $25 an hour. We are receiving a lot of commercial requests for information. It's surprising how many commercial agencies are looking for information that is publicly available, but it does impact time and staff, and so we're going to set that at $25 an hour. So in January, Jared will be coming to the board to talk about polling locations. He is interested in keeping the polling locations at the high school for ease of coordination. Let's see. So trash and recycling will not be delayed due to Christmas and New Year's, so make sure you get your recycling and trash out. Our senior center is busy. We have a new website, Active Aging in Swampscott, for all of our senior citizens, so please check that out, www.activeaging in Swampscott. There is an uptick on scams for elderly persons, so our police department is working with our senior center to really reach out and ensure that our seniors are really getting information. If you need more information, please contact our senior center or our police department. Library Director Jonathan Nichols is busy with a number of community engagement programs and expanding services. He's updating library policies and looking to really roll out a whole host of new initiatives for FY23. Last week I worked with our town treasurer and interim assessor Dick Simmons to set the tax rate. I really want to thank Dick for all of his work over this interim period. I think he's done an absolutely fantastic job filling in on that important function. Patrick is also working on our capital improvement plan and our debt service budget for FY24. Pete has been busy coordinating the hiring of a number of vacant positions, but also has focused on that senior planner position, as I updated the board earlier on. Recreation is planning a first night celebration. There will be a lot of great performance and fun at Swampscott High School from 1 to 4. There are tickets for this event, $25 for a family or $5 for each additional ticket. These can be found at swampscottrec.com. We did receive a $20,000 grant from Mass Housing Partnership to comply with the multifamily zoning requirements of the MBTA communities. We will be working with Bowler Engineering. I want to thank Mike Sweeney and our disabled American vets for the 140 wreaths that they placed on our veterans' graves this past Saturday. We have an exam that is posted for our police department. We've received over 20 applicants, but I would encourage anybody that would like to be a police officer in Swampscott to reach out to our police department and speak with our police chief, Ruben Casada. These are wonderful opportunities for anybody that wants to be a police officer, but you do need to apply and take this exam, but certainly reach out and get some information. We are specifically looking for more women and individuals that historically have not been represented in police departments. So lastly, we have a kickoff for, we are planning a kickoff to discuss the Hawthorne. We'll have times and dates out shortly, but the town has acquired or passed papers to acquire the Hawthorne, and we are really going to reach out to residents to ensure that they have a chance to really share their ideas about how we can use this property and think about what that property will mean both over the next few years and the next few hundred years. So this is your opportunity to really think about that extraordinary property and get ready to share those ideas as we start to come up with that broad vision for Swampscott.
Thanks, Sean. And just briefly, we do have the date, just as a reminder, is Saturday, January 28th, but the other details will be coming soon. Any questions for Sean?
Hey, Sean, you'd mentioned 20 applicants for the upcoming police exam. What's the date certain where folks would need to apply by, and when's the test?
The test's in February. I can get that information. I don't have it offhand, Dave, but I'll
that's fine. So February, and then you would have to, individuals would have to apply by.
I'll get that date to you. I don't have it offhand. Yeah. Certainly, I think it's by sometime in January, but I want to get that specific date before I announce it.
Can we get that on the website?
It is.
Where it is on the website, like
it's
front and
on
center?
Yep, we can put it on the town website as well.
I have a question on the $25 an hour. So how does that get set?
State law. We have there's state law that governs the amount that we can charge for public records, and based on the amount of work that our town clerk's office is involved in, we just have decided that it's important to just start, applying that fee to offset some of the costs of those record requests.
Yeah, so I can understand a lot of work, but I don't see any data on how much work is really going on there. We don't see anything presented to us, and the fact that if a citizen wants a copy of a record, the fact that they have to now pay for a copy of their own information is troubling to me.
Understand.
So I don't think, if a resident wants information from the town, they can email the town and ask for information. My understanding is the difference between a formal FOIA request and just a email to the town saying, I'm interested in information about such and such.
Okay.
And receiving that information. It's not every request for information is going to be charged $25 an hour. It's specifically, technically, a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. So that's my understanding of it. It's not,
This is a
Mr. Smith
official
emails
FOIA.
and says, I'm just curious about whatever. That's a different situation.
And what about the press? When the press is asking for something, they also have to pay?
I'd say it depends.
And are there any, how is this determined? It just depends on who? On Jared? I mean,
Yep,
who,
I've given the town clerk the discretion to determine, the fees.
Yeah, I mean,
The recommendation, I've supported it.
I'm not an expert in FOIA, but so I'll briefly just say that there is a difference, because when there's a FOIA request and you have to provide a response in a certain time frame, there's materials that have to be provided, and so it's different than just an informal request for information that happens all the time.
right, and also, I think that
So you're
one thing that should be
obligated.
looked at is how, maybe as a town, we need to get more information. People should have, an easier time getting information. Like if somebody really wants to look at what our budgets are, where we are with our budgets, things like that.
Yeah, I agree with Mary Ellen on that. We should, but we should also shed light on exactly what the FOIA requests are actually asking for. Because I
Yeah.
think we're going to find out the FOIA requests aren't asking for that. The
Yeah.
FOIA requests seem to be regular and constant from the same individuals.
Well, that's
And
what
they
I'm
tend-
saying.
yeah, and they
We don't
tend to
have
be-
any information here.
And they tend to be asking for more detailed, voluminous information, but we should make that.
I'm
So
happy to.
we should pick up that conversation. Mary Ellen's on, I agree with her generally, which
Sure.
is we just got to be careful that we're not using it to deter. It's really got to be a reflection of once Jared has to change his path, or his staff needs to change their path in a meaningful way because of something, maybe, and state law allows this, by the way. So you're not proposing anything that state law doesn't actually have. You're just giving Jared more of an ability. But I think in reality, what we have been seeing is not people asking for, tell us where you are in your expense line item for paper clips in town hall. I think what we're seeing is people asking for extensive communications and other information that I think.
We're not here to be research assistants for individuals that are curious about government. If they want us to get these records, they're going to have to pay for.
My concerns are just that the citizens of Swampscott have access to
Absolutely.
public
I
information that is
certainly
not
want
public.
citizens of Swampscott to be curious about government, and I want them to feel as though if they contact us, we will be forthcoming with any kind of reasonable request for information. It's the voluminous requests, and it's the things that really do place extraordinary burdens on staff that we really just want to, we just want some reasonable recovery of taxpayer time and effort.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you want to do something?
Well, I see Amy has her hand raised, Amy Sorrow. I don't know, Amy, if.
I just wanted to clarify something on what items would be getting charged versus what are not. Because any request that's, well, first off, a FOIA and a public information request are the exact same thing. So whether it comes from a resident or a corporation, it falls under the same MGL. But for anyone that sends a basic request that is, like Mary Ellen said, a budget request or anything like that we can provide in less than an hour, that doesn't get charged at all, no matter who requests it. It's when the request exceeds an hour of time that it's going to take for someone to get it. And specifically, the town clerk was looking to charge for this for outside corporations, especially out-of-state corporations that are just data mining from numerous communities.
Okay, that's good to know.
Thanks, Amy.
So I have a couple of things to follow up on Sean's stuff. The first question I have is whose responsibility is it to do annual reports? The clerk?
It is the clerk, but I would
All
say every town department and board.
No, but it's the clerk. The clerk issues the town report every year, and the town report is our history. It is essentially what the government did for the last 12 months, right? It is there are volumes in the library of town reports going back how many years Swampscott is, telling you every year, literally, that the the fence reviewers approved a fence on Humphrey Street in 1902. And why is that important? Because that's the history of our town. It's really important. So Jared's only been here less than a year. How did we get to a point where we have 10 years of history missing? And I really appreciate that you're raising this because it shows that you reflect this. But how did we get to a point
I think
where
it
we have
just,
10 years, a decade of missing history? How did we get there?
We just didn't compile the reports.
We being the clerk didn't compile the reports at the time. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this because it's not, I want to make sure people understand it is the clerk's responsibility, but it's not Jared's responsibility. He's been here less than a year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask maybe a written submission relative to the police exam? I'm glad it's coming up, but I can't help but notice that, and I understand that they're different positions, but the first fire exam and the first police exam had a disparate number of applicants, and obviously they're different positions with different backgrounds, and so they're very different. But I would be really interested in I think just a memo to the board from each of the chiefs saying this is what they did to advertise to go out, and I'd really be interested in seeing what the efforts are of the two departments in terms of advertising their exams, and hear from the chiefs on that, both to understand the differences and also to see where there is some more ideas and collaboration. 20 people for an exam isn't a deep bench for an exam. And just like when you come forward with a recommendation for a department head, one of the things we oftentimes ask you is, how many applicants you get? Because if you had 2 applicants, regardless of who the 2 are, it's, generically gives less confidence than if you had 20 applicants, right? And here, with the fire department, I believe, had in the 80s of applicants the first fire test, and I think it was under 40 for the first police exam. So I just want to make sure that we're getting the deepest possible bench for these exams, and I'm so glad they're doing it. I'm so glad that they're all collaborating, working on it, but I would be interested to know what the efforts are so that we maybe can also suggest some ways of promoting it. I will note, you said it's on the website. It's not on the website, or it's not obviously on the website. In the news section, I frankly think as though positions and openings in town should be on the front page, and it should be there as a direct link every time. If anybody ever wants to know about any position in the town of Swampscott that's open, they should be able to click jobs available and see the listing and take them right there. It shouldn't be put in the news box because the news box gets, rolled. It should really just be put there, just a banner saying, come work for us. That's the easiest job recruitment tool we have, is something we already have set up and we don't use it that way. If we wanted to know right now what jobs were available in Swampscott, we couldn't without a FOIA request. That was a joke. Charging $25 to find that out. No, but in all seriousness, I do want to make sure that let's put it right up there. Let's advertise.
Absolutely.
Let's put that.
Will get that right up.
I appreciate how you use social media. Let's put that on social media once a week. One of the posts should be jobs available. Come work for us.
It'll be in our newsletter.
Right?
Yep.
I just think the newsletter's great, but
Social media,
again,
too.
social media is regular. The town websites every day. Let's really put it out there. There are a lot of great residents who would love, and a lot of the jobs here have a lot of good things that we can make flexible for the right people. We can make the job work.
Mary Ellen thinks I'm going to join the police force, so that's what I'm not going to be joining.
She's too busy running turkey races and things. She's
Winning.
time for that. And winning. Sorry, not running, winning.
So I'm sorry. So the exam is on
got a blue
February
light.
13th. Applications, let's see.
Sean, I have a question on, there's 20 applicants that have already taken the test, and my understanding is it's a revolving test, that there's a test, I think, every month, and it goes on for several months.
That's right.
Is there any possibility, if there are 20 applicants right now, is there any possibility of escalating a physical test, or doing several physical tests so that, applicants, if there are applicants that, we really want?
I have had a discussion with the chief about ways that we can expedite the
Instead of waiting?
review of these individuals. But, I think we want to see what pool we have and, make sure that we have the broadest opportunity to have a very fair process for all that are interested.
can I ask a clarifying question, though, just to make sure I understand it? You say there's 20 applicants. There's 20 applicants for the February 13th test. Those are in addition to, I'm saying it as a question, those are in addition to people who previously passed a test that are still on a list.
That's right.
But we've now called for a new list. So am I right? So these 20 people that you mentioned now are people that haven't taken a test, but on February 13th will take a test.
Some of them have already taken it because they've opened it up, and it's been a rolling exam period.
So are these
I'm
20
reading
that have
the-
already taken a
like,
test?
I'm reading the opening on the website here. It says, to be considered for their current recruitment effort, all interested applicants are encouraged to register and pass the PES entry exam on or before the February 13th exam.
Right.
Right, so, but,
Applications received after February 20th will be kept on file.
so I'm sorry, so is the PES, whatever it is,
Is that
this is
the-
my ignorance, is that the same exam that's
Same
given on the
It-
13th?
Yes.
Yes, it's just giving
And so
more.
the 13th is the last
The
time it's.
last day you can do
Okay,
it.
gotcha. And so, let me just ask another question. Is there a reason we don't have that test going all the time, 12 months of the year? Said differently, do we have a contractual obligation
We
that
do have a
prevents us
contractual
from
obligation
running the
with
test
the
all year
union,
long?
and it's one that has caused me great grief, that has limited the town to one test per year, and it absolutely handicapped our ability to go out and find the broadest number of applicants to fill, these incredibly important.
So I would ask you to, frankly, that hearing that, I would say I would encourage you to impact bargain the fact that you should be able to take a test, call a test whenever you want to have a test to keep that pool as deep and broad as we can be. It feels like that is designed to protect something, and I don't know what it is, but what it's protecting maybe is vacancies, and I can't imagine anybody wants vacancies because I've heard that the police department wants us to fill those vacancies. So let's take a test 12 months a year, as far as I'm concerned.
So,
I think we should have, I think we should be able to post for any position, anytime we need to fill it.
so how are we currently having multiple tests?
We have one test.
But it's being
with
offered multiple
With
times.
a firm, it's the same test.
But that just started, so that just.
We
tell me if
hired
I'm-
a testing agency.
Correct.
And they've-
No, I understand,
they've-
but-
That's, Katie's, she's asking the logical, if
Yeah,
we only
you-
could
if
do
you
it
said
once a
we
year,
have
how is it
union
that's,
obligation not to offer it more than one time a year, how is that happening right now?
because we're at the one time a year.
Yeah, we've
But it's not one time.
passed,
No.
we passed the
We're at the one
date.
period, we're at the one period of
Passed
the
the
year.
date.
where the-
Last year, we had it on December 16th, and so we passed the date, and so now we can go out, back out and schedule this new exam, and the new date is February,
So don't think of it as just one exam, but one period of
13th.
time in which the exam can be administered. So the exam's being administered multiple times within a 60-day
60-day
period,
period.
getting to February 13th. But that's the only time. So if he wants to, under
So
the
the
current
obligation-
contract, if he wants to post again in May, he has to use the results of the February 13th list in May and can't go back out and recruit like he could for an HR director or a DPW person. He could go back out and say, let's apply, let's see who's now interested in May.
It's not one test, it's one hiring period.
And,
Yeah, like we,
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep,
it would be
got it.
February
Colloquial
16th.
phrases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Sean,
The next time.
and Sean, how does this impact laterals? Could police department potentially hire?
yeah, we actually can hire with laterals. I have worked with, the chief and the union to look at using our ability to go out and recruit laterally, but that can still present some challenges, but certainly.
Okay, so, but we do have that ability.
I have authorized that, and I would certainly entertain looking at laterals.
I think to Mary Ellen's point, the worry is that if you wanted to be a Swampscott police officer, so you took the test the first day you had the opportunity to do it, and you took that test and you did well, we are not even looking at you until 60 days later, and you could take a job somewhere else.
Right.
Or you could have an opportunity come upon you somewhere else, and we could lose out on great applicants.
So Katie takes a test tomorrow, has a great score, and we're going to turn around and wait, and then all of a sudden Marblehead calls and says, hey, Katie, you had a great score. We want to hire you. And she's like, yeah, great. I want to wear blue.
So I've had that conversation with the chief about, really reaching out as quickly as we can to engage.
Is there anything that prevents him from reaching out?
No, nothing.
So he can, there's no contract requirement on that. So that can be solved.
But
Okay,
then they
so-
have to wait to take the physical exam.
Well, wait, so
Okay.
now the question is, can we have multiple physical tests? Are we still within the parameters of whatever has been agreed with?
I'd have to work with the chief and kind of look at schedules and times, but I don't think there's anything that would preclude us from having multiple physical tests.
So that sounds like
So
good news.
let's-
Yeah,
Let's
That
start.
sounds like good
into
news.
it.
Hey,
Do that.
My point is a little different, which is I'm worried about the other 10 months of the year when we're not giving the test, that we are confined to a list by the end of the year, which is 10 months old. So if we're concerned about losing these wonderful people, 10 months later, we're definitely concerned that they're not there. But so that list of 20 applicants, let's say they all pass. But 10 months later, if they're all that good, they're not going to be sitting around waiting for a police offer. And so 10 months later, we can only use that list because for some reason we've agreed to that contractually with the unions. So I guess I would suggest, and I'm only one person here, that you impact bargain something that gives you greater gives the chief greater flexibility to make sure that he or she can get the deepest, best, most qualified pool of applicants whenever they want it, as opposed to having to be limited, because that system just limits the pool of applicants.
So,
And I don't understand why.
Peter, are you suggesting that we set up policy that, that defines the minimum number of applicants that should be on that list before we would have another test, or set up?
No, I
Have
mean,
tests all the time.
I'm saying test all the time, yeah.
Test-
Mary Ellen
Test
just said
for-
test all the
test-
time,
test
which
monthly.
is,
Have it open
Test,
all.
which is
test
just like
as
any other
needed.
position.
Yeah.
As needed, okay.
Again, I mean, I remember, I don't say this lightly, because I do remember the time, one time, I've only voted against one department recommendation by a town administrator in my 8+ years. And that was when a former town administrator presented a then building inspector candidate, and I said, how many people did you interview? And his response was, that's not your business under the charter. This is my recommendation. And I said, well, can you tell me, is it 2? Or did you do 20? And he said, it's not your business. And I said, well,
Should have done a FOIA.
the depth, I wouldn't get it through the FOIA, that's the thing. But but that matters. That depth of base just matters, in just numerically, statistically it matters. We are going to have better DPW workers when we have a better pool to choose from, because the vacancy compels decisions. And so if you only have 2 people, and you don't love either, but you have a vacancy and everybody else is getting stressed out, you're gonna say, good enough, I can make them better. I can hire them, when in truth, that's not who you'd want to hire if you didn't have to. You would have found someone more qualified or with a different set of specialties. And I think that's just true. And so we should always want the biggest, deepest list on these
Agreed.
things. So if you can, I mean, again, if you have to impact bargain, you have to impact bargain it. I don't know why it would be
Well, I'm not,
something.
I'm not sure why you would have to impact bargain. I mean, we sat here, we heard the union
It's in
say.
the contract.
Well, hold on a second, but we did hear the union say that, there's an issue with staffing, and we heard the union say that they wanted more staffing, so,
Believe me, I heard them say that too, and I
well, then it
tried.
sounds like
but
they want to be able to have more staffing, so why not just have the conversation?
Well, because I think technically, as my understanding is, the union requested and required as part of a negotiation that the test only happen when it's happening, that they don't want, notwithstanding what they said, they can come explain why they wanted that, but they wanted it. So despite what perhaps they've said to us about wanting
So
this.
I think an adult conversation about that,
Yeah, Sean, see if we can do.
we have serious issues going on with staffing, and
That would help.
let's just have a
Yep.
conversation.
Yeah.
I think those
3
conversations
times
have
tonight.
happened.
Marilyn and I stopped there too. 3 times tonight, her and I.
It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle. So let's end there.
Motion to adjourn.
Let's just cancel. Right. Let's cancel
no, we
select
didn't
board
have-
time.
Lastly, I just want to say
Yes,
Merry
one more time.
Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and I hope everybody does have a wonderful holiday season. I also do want to say that, I send my sympathies, to Cheryl Levinson, and I had the extraordinary good fortune of serving on the Marion Court Board of Trustees for 4 years with Paul Levinson. I knew him way back when as well, when I began my public service, and he was the member of the select board. He represented Swampscott on a board that I worked for that had 24 chairmen of the boards of selectmen and 10 mayors, and Paul was well-respected by every member of that board. Mayors and selectmen from across Essex County all thought of him as a statesman. He had a voice that was so unique and so powerful. You all serve in a seat that he shared, and you are select citizens. And it is really a wonderful part of democracy that we have these dedicated citizens that pour their lives into public service. We should not forget how precious this democracy is. And certainly I know all of you appreciate just how important your roles are in this little town.
Thanks, Sean. Select board time.
David, do you have anything?
I do have something real fast, and I'm gonna try not to sound like a Hallmark movie right now, but I do want to acknowledge all the things that are happening around town during this holiday season, whether it's the rec department, what the library is having some wonderful programming happening, the senior center, and it's just a reflection of this time of year, but also of the spirit of Swampscott and what it means to be part of this little town where, Santa shows up at a select board meeting or at a holiday parade. And it's just lovely because it is really creating core memories for my kids and for people all around town. I hope people take the time to stop and appreciate the things they see around town happening, especially this time of year, because it does make Swampscott a wonderful place to live, despite all the other stuff that's happening in the world.
Thanks, Katie.
So keeping Swampscott a wonderful place to live, I do want to request that the police chief and the animal control officer and Sean put together some type of a policy on how we can keep ourselves from being in the situation that Nahant is in. For those of you that don't know, Nahant Select Board voted to exterminate their coyote population. Coyotes must fear humans in order to be able for us to survive and to share our habitats. So whatever it's going to take, huge fines for people that are feeding coyotes, or to have a coyote task force in case we see coyotes. How do we, get rid of them? There's a group in California. I listened to a webinar, some type of a Zoom meeting, and there are professionals from Canada and California who volunteer. They're volunteering their services to come in and help Nahant change the behavior or try to minimize the effects of the coyote issue. And if we can find out whatever they're doing or just have some type of plan, I don't want to ever have to vote to.
Mary Ellen, I don't think I've ever met anybody that cares more about our four-legged citizens than you. And I appreciate your compassion and sensitivity to wildlife. I did speak with the Nahant Town Administrator last week, and I did share with him that I have frankly gone on record. I have mentioned to my ACO, my police chief, many months ago that I do not believe in euthanasia of coyotes. I believe that we live in a habitat. We've lived in this habitat for millennia as human beings. We understand that we don't feed animals at the zoo and you don't feed them in your backyard. You live in a habitat, and we share it with wildlife. We share it with turkeys, and we share it with all sorts of wonderful things that are dangerous. But I don't believe the coyotes, the eastern coyote is specifically, not the ones in California, not the ones in Arizona, these are different. They're smaller and they are not as dangerous, but they are dangerous, and we have to be mindful. I think the biggest failure that we've had is in really educating people that they need to be left alone and they should not be engaged with human beings. You need to respect their ability to live in certain pockets of wildlife. Even in suburbia, we have pockets of wildlife. Let's ensure that we all respect that. And I've talked to our ACO, Scott Constantine, I've talked to our police chief about making sure that our young citizens and our older citizens and everybody in between respect wildlife. If they have a problem with coyotes, contact our ACO or contact our police department. If you can't get a hold of them, contact me. I will make sure that we help you interact with the small absolutely extraordinary pockets of wildlife that we have in Swampscott. It's not something we should fear. It's something that we should understand. The biggest public safety issue we have in Swampscott is pedestrian safety and automobiles. And I want people to focus on what's most important.
We should be shooting automobiles.
It's amazing to me, you know, and I don't think the Lynn item did anybody a service by putting a vicious-looking, you know, animal on the front top of the fold. I think they sensationalize a really important conversation that we should be having about how, you know, humane we should be, not only to each other, but to the wildlife that we are here to help support. That said, I don't think you have to worry that I will waver on this. Like,
No,
we can
appreciate that. I just want to see
absolutely-
I want to see a plan.
Some proactive.
Yeah,
proactive.
Yep, we've talked about a non-lethal, you know, way of deterrence and making sure that we do find people and we go after
Yeah, I think it's worth pursuing.
individuals that
there
are
people that do this
feeding,
at no cost,
you know.
that will
Yeah.
Come and
hate,
talk to us.
harass and
But
hate
we've got to start with the
coyotes and,
public education
Right.
effort.
yep.
That's
what
the
they're
beginning of the
That's it.
plan.
That's
Yeah.
part of my,
Yep.
you know, soapbox right now.
All right,
Awesome.
four things Mary Ellen and I agreed on tonight. Mary Ellen, Merry Christmas.
Going
I
for the
know,
record.
but I got to tell you,
Not even the new
mic
year
drop.
yet.
no, the Nahant, look at the Nahant decision befuddles me, and they have right to make decisions that they want to make, but in one hand, they are fighting to keep Nahant natural, on the other hand,
Wild, right.
in the other hand, they're attempting to make Nahant not wild.
Look, I don't want to disparage not,
No,
the,
that's all right,
I will.
I'm doing it for you. Don't worry about it.
And you don't have to.
Question.
It's just, I just don't understand it, and I just think it's remarkably, and it sends an incredibly bad message.
my hope is that we can work with Nahant and help all of, because these issues do not just affect Swampscott. These pockets of wildlife, they travel through and around our communities, and so I don't want Nahant to feel as though they're isolated, and my goal will be to try to.
They are.
Geographically.
Understand.
I think they feel that way.
Understand.
All right.
Well, wait, I do,
Yeah,
I want to thank, I just want to thank Nathan and Ethan for the great job that they're doing back
Absolutely.
there again. I constantly forget to say thank you, and I want to.
And I have one more thing. If a family wanted to attend first night and they were not in a financial position to do so, could you
Have them
please
call me.
have
Yep.
somebody post something about that on the rec page?
Sure.
Thank you.
Peter,
Make a
David?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's their.
Wait, did
select
Neil
board
have anything to
sign.
say?
I guess not.
He was asking if you had select board time.
Well,
Yeah.
That was it.
That's fine. No, I just wanted to say happy holidays, everybody. And it's been a good year, and it's been a pleasure working with all of you, and I look forward to 2023.
Can we just show off, can you get a close-up of David's sweater, please, before we leave?
Look at those.
I'm on the naughty list.
On the naughty list.
TV
Your
people, there you go. Look
Oh,
at
my God.
Nice.
And you
And then,
changed. Now
what's
I'm
the other way?
nice.
What's the
That's
other
a-
way? Go the other way again.
That's
That's
a
high
beautiful
tech.
sweater,
Yeah.
David.
It's shedding, by the way.
Yeah.
Nice.
It doesn't have any more Christmases left.
Like the naughty doesn't even come up anymore because it's been shown so much. All right. David wins the ugly sweater contest.
We
I
didn't
think
even
so.
vote.
Well, come on.
Yours is ugly also.
Oh, no, mine's ugly, but mine doesn't like literally have.
Doesn't change.
It doesn't change.
Neil's
Not a sweater either.
Those pumps.
That's right.
Exactly.
He's out by default.
Mine's ugly,
No, we
but-
haven't even adjourned.
Pretty lame. Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Dave.